let's go ahead and do a quick recap of the adding integer rules. Please ask one of your iPrep facilitators for the graphic organizer of this so that you don't have to rewrite everything. You can just paste this in your journal and copy down the rules and examples with me. Okay, so let's go ahead and recap when adding integers that are both positive. So for example, if I add 4 plus 2, right? So both of my numbers here are positive. The rule in this case that we are first going to add our numbers, right? And then the second thing is keep the positive sign, okay? So if I give Tashumba $4 and then David gives Tashumba $2, Tashumba now has a total of $6, and that number is positive because she has $6. So when you have two positive numbers, your answer is also going to be positive. Now, the same rule applies if we have negative numbers. So let's say Tashumba owes David $4, and then she also owes me $2. Now notice how I put the plus to describe that we are adding, but she still owes $2, so I would represent that as a negative 2. In that case, I'm going to add it, right? So she owes $6, and the way to represent owing is with a negative. So with both negative add-ins, I'm going to add the numbers and then keep the negative sign, okay? Now, with a positive and negative number, that one is a little bit tricky, okay? So let's do it this way. We're going to do it two ways, actually. And then -2 plus 4. Okay, so in this case, we have one positive number and one negative number. So let's say that Rochelle owes me, Miss Davis, $4, and then she pays me back $2, right? How much does she now owe me, if any? She still owes me $2, right? I still need my $2 back, Rochelle. Don't think you're going to get away with it. So she owed me 4 and she paid me back 2. She still owes me $2. Now, let's say that Brianna owes Cassandra $2, and then she gives Cassandra, she pays her back 4. What happens now? Now Cassandra has positive $2. She has $2 more than she really needed, right? So we have the same numbers here, but the signs are different for each. So what makes the difference? The difference is the bigger number, right? In this case, when you look at the numbers without signs, when you look at the absolute value, 4 is a bigger number. In this first example, 4 is negative. So my answer is also going to be negative. In the second example, 4 is positive. So my answer is going to be positive. So the rule with one add-in being positive and the other being negative is that in reality, we actually subtract. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So the first thing we do is subtract. And then afterwards, we keep the sign of the number with the bigger absolute value, okay? So this is just a recap of these adding integer rules, okay? Go ahead and try these on your own in your journal. Tell me, what is the solution going to be for each single one of these? And I want you to write a mathematical sentence for question number 4. This one is a little bit tricky. Once you're done with these, raise your hand so your iPrep facilitator can check and you can move on. Okay, so now we have a little bit of a more tricky concept, which is subtracting integers, right? So you've done 5 minus 2 before. You know what that could equal, right? If you have $5 and then spend 2 of it, you now have positive 3. Another way to represent that using a number line is we always start at 0, and I'm going to go to positive 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And I end up at 5, moving in the positive 5 direction. Then I need to go negative 2. So I'm going to go back to 1, 2, moving negative 2, and I end up again at positive 3, okay? Another way to rewrite this sentence is negative 2 plus 5. All I did was switch the numbers around. And using our integer rules, 5 is bigger, so I'm going to have a positive answer. And I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3, okay? But there's a more abstract rule for subtracting integers, and we're going to go over that really quickly now. So go ahead and ask your iPrep facilitator for this second organizer for your journal so that you can learn how to do subtracting integers. Now, subtracting integers, for those of you guys who love keep, change, flip because you think that stuff is easy, then you're going to maybe think subtracting integers is easy, because the way to subtract integers is using a method called keep, change, change, okay? So what that means is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my first number, right? So my first number right now is a positive 5. So I'm going to keep that number positive 5, okay? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the sign. Now I'm going to split this up 3 ways like this, right? Because I have my keep, change, change. I'm going to change this subtraction sign to a plus, an addition. So I already did that for all of the problems. I'm going to change that negative or subtraction to a positive. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change. Now, if I remember that the minus is actually subtraction, then that means that my 2 left alone, if there's no sign, that's going to be a positive 2. What is the opposite of positive 2? How can I change positive 2? I make it negative, okay? So now, using my addition rules that I've copied down before, I know how to add these, right? So the first thing that I do, because I have a positive and a negative number, I'm going to look at that part in my organizer, and I know that the first thing I have to do is subtract. So 5 minus 2 is going to give me 3. Now I'm going to look at the one that has the bigger absolute value. Well, I know that 5 has a greater absolute value, and it's positive, so my answer is also going to be positive. And that makes sense, right? 5 minus 2, we know how to do that, gives us a positive 3, okay? Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the next one. So I'm going to, again, split it 3 ways. I'm going to keep the first one, so it's negative 5. I'm going to change that minus subtraction sign to a plus, a positive. And now I have a 2 by itself. I'm going to go ahead and change that to the opposite, which is negative 2, okay? Going back to my rule, when I have 2 negative numbers, I'm going to add them. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And then I'm going to keep the sign. So I'm going to keep that negative sign, okay? So that is going to be negative 7. Let's try this last one, all right? So I'm going to split it 3 ways. Now this one's a little tricky because I have 2 minus signs, right? So I know I'm going to have one of them being the subtraction sign and the other one being a negative number, okay? So I'm going to keep that 5, that first 5 there. I'm going to change this subtraction to what? Addition, right? So keep, change, change. And then lastly, I'm going to change this last number. This last number is negative. So how do I change a negative 2 to its opposite? I'm going to make it positive 2. So 5 plus positive 2, we know we have 2 positive numbers, so I'm going to add and then keep the sign. So it's going to give me a positive 7. Now, you may have heard before the saying, 2 wrongs make a right, right? So in this case, when you have 2 negative numbers together, when I have 5 minus negative 2, 2 negatives always make a positive. And we see that in our table, right? We had negative turned into an addition sign, and then our subtraction turned into an addition sign, and then negative 2 turned into positive 2. So 2 wrongs make a right. 2 negatives will always make a positive, okay? So keep that in mind when you're doing the subtraction of integers. Now what I want you to do for your classwork is I want you to answer these 6 problems in your journal. When you are done, go ahead and raise your hand so your iPrep facilitator can check your work. You will be getting a classwork grade for the first 4 problems that you did on adding and these 6. So you want to make sure that you get this easy classwork grade. Make sure to follow the integer rules so that you understand what you need to do.